Hello everyone, my name is Kim Parnell. You are watching The Grind TV, where I talk about startups, tech, entrepreneurship, and all the other crazy things that go through my mind. This is the most popular question that people like to ask me. How do you overcome, or how do you deal, what do you do being a female in a fairly male-dominated environment, that being tech and startups? This could be a really long answer. I'm going to condense it. I'm going to focus on primarily one thing that I feel has made a dramatic difference, and in the positive way, a dramatic improvement in the way that I go about things, the way that I conduct myself, and the way I view this entire situation. I feel like we have a built-in advantage. And I'm not talking about, all the government grants and all the affirmative action and things that are in place right now. What I am talking about is our energy. Naturally, I'm a very smiley, happy, some may say bubbly or outgoing kind of person. I'm really energetic. Like, this is my face almost all the time. Like, this is how I look, this is how I talk. And when I was pursuing, my first business and starting to interact with a lot of definitely men that were in the decision-making position, they were older than me, they had more senior positions than I did, I was trying to sell to them. I had a feeling, and I had the perception that I had to reel back this part of my personality and be very stern and straight-faced and professional and give off this impression that I'm really confident and that I am like stone cold. And it began as an intentional subduing of my personality, and it ended up being habitual. It was so habitual that in certain scenarios, if people happened to be with me in another environment, they would notice it. They would say, like, you're kind of a different person. Some situations warrant some seriousness, but in most cases, it didn't. It was just my own belief and perception that I had to interact like this to be taken seriously. I was also really young, so that definitely added to my feeling like I had to put on this really serious face. Subconsciously, what we're doing as women when we do that is we are trying to act more male. Some of these traits that we're trying to adopt are very masculine traits. Before I continue, I just want everyone to take a breath, stop for a second, and just try to really understand when I say feminine and masculine. Neither is better or worse. That doesn't mean like a man has all those qualities and a woman has all these qualities. They actually overlap a lot. A lot of men have quite a lot of feminine qualities, and I'm not talking about like really flamboyantly gay guys. I'm talking about any man, and a lot of women carry a lot of more masculine traits. There's no other connotation other than that's just how they are called and where they have the dominant disbursement of that trait amongst the population. I was trying to adopt a lot of these, what I perceived as empowering or confident traits. And that comes from the fact that when I was growing up, and even now, there are a lot more men in power positions. As a society, we began to associate these traits with power positions. We thought they were one and the same. And that's not true. That's just how it was. So that was our interpretation, because the majority of power positions were held by men. Therefore, the majority of power positions were held by people with these traits. And somehow, in my mind, and I'm sure a lot of you can relate, that became the equation of how to get there. You had to have these traits in order to get to that position or to get to that goal or achieve that success in life. I would find in certain scenarios or certain situations where I didn't intend to be talking about my business or my company. Maybe I was out socially or just interacting with a group of people, and I would begin talking about what I'm doing. But I would be doing it as me with all of my energy and enthusiasm and my smiling face, and my face gets really animated, and the reception from other people was always better. And so I started to think about this and think, why am I so successful in scenarios and conversations when I wasn't even intending to even talk about what I did or the company or anything like that? And I'm getting a lot more value out of those scenarios than I am from ones that should be producing results. Fast forward a little while, I had a conversation with someone very close to me, and we really broke this down. And to be quite honest, the first part of this conversation, which took place probably over like 4 or 5 days, the first part of this conversation, I was really offended. I was not able to even look at this clearly. I was not able to evaluate what was going on and think about it clearly. There was terms and things that were said where I should be more feminine or, things like that. And I took a lot of offense to that. And this stems from just the interpretation I had that seemed like a negative to me. When I say it now, it's so crazy because how can it be negative to be female? Like, I am female. How can that possibly be a negative? Then I started to think about the traits, not as this is what a female is and this is what a man is, but a female trait, whether that be being more smiley or having a more welcoming demeanor or being maybe more caring or more nurturing. Some of these traits that are more typically female, and again, I'm not excluding the men. Men have these as well, but they are more typically found in females. By actually allowing myself to put those out there exactly how they are, I would be in a different place than I am right now. And I'm possibly doing myself a disservice by not doing that. So when you look at the traits as I just described, you can find those traits in a male as well. And if you really think about it, some of the most well-liked men, some of the most charismatic men, or men that are able to just draw a crowd and everyone in the room looks at them, they have those traits, right? They smile. They have a welcoming demeanor. People want to talk to them. They care about other people. These traits can cross genders. They do. I think that as females, we do ourselves a huge disservice by thinking that we have to be something that we're not. Of course, this doesn't mean fake those traits if those aren't your natural demeanor. But for me, I definitely was subduing them, like I said, intentionally at the beginning, and then completely subconsciously. It had become such a habit that I would put on this hi, I'm Kim, nice to meet you. Who is that person? That's not me, right? And I had it in my head that I couldn't be a happy, smiling, positive, energetic person and also know my shit. For whatever reason in my head, that wasn't coming together. And it was likely because I hadn't seen a lot of examples of that, purely because there are not a lot of women in the positions that I'm trying to achieve. I'd like to encourage everybody to be cognizant of why you have the mental frameworks that you have. Is it just because you haven't seen examples of people like you in that position? That doesn't mean that people like you can't be in that position. It doesn't mean that you can't get to that position or that goal or achieve that success being who you are just because you haven't seen a lot of examples of it. And of course now there are a lot of examples of successful women and people in really, high level positions and successful founders, and there are a lot of examples, but still substantially less than the men. I was very quick to put them in buckets of man and woman. And I wasn't even looking at the fact that a lot of these men are charismatic, they're smiley, they're approachable, they're friendly, and somehow they got a pass for being like that in my head because they were a man. You're a man, you're allowed to be like that, but I'm a woman, I can't be like that, no one's gonna take me seriously. Doesn't really make sense. After finally going through it in my head over and over and over again, I was able to come to terms and really own it. Own, sounds ridiculous to say, but own the fact that I'm female. Own the fact that I can be a person with my personality and my traits and still get where I want to get. And not only that by being that person, I may actually go faster. I may go further. The journey may be easier. So I put that into practice, and I have began interacting like this all the time. I'm me. I'm me right now. I'm me if you meet me outside of here. I'm me when I'm in a meeting or a presentation. And I have to say the results have been awesome. Who doesn't want to be around people that make them smile? If you're in a room full of 25 people and one looks friendly, why wouldn't you go talk to that person, right? So the advantage that we as women have just by our nature, the fact that we are slightly more predispositioned to interact like that, and that's already built into us, and we're pushing that down because we don't think it's good, when really it's what's gonna catapult us to the top. That is the one thing I wanted to touch on. Like I said, I could talk about so many things. It got really into the weeds with that conversation, and it was to the point where I thought, you know, the world is not what I think it is. What am I doing with my life? Like, it got pretty low. But the end result, I think, is worth it, because now I am just completely at peace with this whole scenario and this whole situation. And I wish that for any other woman out there that's struggling with that thought in their head, that they have to play a certain role or come off a certain way so that they're taken seriously, so that they look like they know what they're talking about, so that other people put them in the same category as some of the other male founders that they might be around. If you are a female and you've gone through this and you're still struggling with it, or you are kind of where I am, I'd love to hear about it. If you're a man and you're watching this, thank you for watching this whole video. I don't know if you think it applied to you or anything, but as men, I think they don't even really care. I don't think a guy is talking to someone thinking, oh, I'm not gonna take her seriously because she smiles too much. There's a big difference between smiling and being an airhead. They're not the same thing. So if you smile, but while smiling, you actually have something good to say and you know what you're talking about, go for it. If you're smiling to cover up the fact that you have no idea what you're talking about, different story. But I'd love to hear men's take on this as well. I think it's all of our perception as women, and we think that we need to do something a little bit differently. So thank you all so much for watching. As always, I'd love you to like, comment, subscribe, tell me about your experience. Talk to you soon, and have a great day.